because it's really
Good,
sweet.
man. What's up, Kevin?
Hey, man.
It's a snowy, sort of snowy morning in the Salt Lake City Valley. Hence the beanie, in case you were going to make fun of me for wearing a beanie in the office.
In any other podcast, I would have just blanched and been like, oh, no, you just dated us. But we do AI. So, 2-3 weeks from now, everything here is going to be obsolete.
It's very disposable content. Anything having to do with AI is very disposable, transient content.
So Andres, who's our producer sitting behind the scenes, he sent me a video that I did. I don't really know how long ago it was. I think it was maybe only 18 months. And I was like waxing on about these are the 10 tools that I use every day. And his note was, do you use any of these? And I went through them. And the answer is, well, I still use ChatGPT, but all 9 of the other tools that were in like daily rotation for me are now toast. Like
name a couple of them. I'm curious.
Gist, which I was using for PDF summarization.
What is it called?
Gist, G-I-S-T. This is a while ago. So this was like 2 years ago. And it was a browser plugin, and it was all of these are wrappers, right? So they're just wrapping around an LLM experience.
Unlike today.
Well, I mean, it is slightly better now, right? But at the time, I was just railing about wrappers, and sure enough, like most of them have died. So this Gist was just like a Chrome plugin that summarized sites. Ideogram was on there, which admittedly,
I remember that.
I do occasionally still. It's like $6 a month, so I'm not like overstressed about that. There's one called Remove BG, which is just like a Unitasker, and all it did was
take backgrounds off images.
Yeah, but the dang thing worked really well, and not begrudging the founders there.
It's funny because there's so many tools like that where they just do one thing, but they do it really, really well. And I'll still use some. I think a good example is if I'm doing design, it's primarily in Figma, and Figma's got tons of plugins for background removers, but none of them seem to work as well as one in Canva. Like the one in Canva has just got some sort of secret sauce where I will routinely go into Canva just to like zap a background out really fast because it's just flawless.
Okay, so I still have it up on my screen. So Fireflies, plenty of people use Fireflies. There's nothing wrong with Fireflies. If you're using Fireflies,
we're still on Fireflies because of a CRM integration that's just more robust than others.
So, but I have sort of a love-hate relationship with Fireflies in that I feel like early on they got a little big for their britches, and they wanted to be this like central repository of all of your AI-ness, and we're gonna for that privilege we're gonna charge you a bunch of money. And me being me, I wanted nothing to do with their productivity. I just wanted the dang transcript, and they were making it hard to get the transcripts off the platform, which drove me away the platform.
Yeah,
because I want my context.
You're now are you still on the Spiky tip? Are you still using Spiky?
Spiky AI is amazing.
Okay.
It is a really good tool. And I'm not sure about just as a reminder, Spiky is really interesting because it's not just a transcriptor. And I actually use a couple other transcript tools that are out there that work totally fine. Some of them are ambient, some of them join your meetings. Spiky is cool because it's a sales tool, and it will show you things like your human dynamics of how you're speaking, how fast you're speaking, etc. Right. But it also has playbooks on the other side. So if I'm on a call with a partner, I'll have one playbook. If I'm on a call with like a sales prospect, I'll have another. And then
you offer these playbooks, or are they templates in the system?
You have to upload them. There is a dynamic process, and there's a little bit of a do what I say, not what I do here, in that because I'm basically the sales team, I'm not following like a pure playbook. But when we work with
always be closing, Kevin, always be closing.
Always be closing, right?
It just yells that at you throughout your entire call. Close, Kevin, close.
But if you even had a single salesperson that you didn't really want to manage, it does sales coaching for that person and gives you a lot of visibility. It also has video, and most of the other tools don't do video. That makes it a heavy load from processing. But if I have a call that's particularly engaging or interesting, I have the video because of Spiky, and then occasionally we'll use that to like recut the call into social bits or whatever. Or if it's just a better experience.
I'd argue most of the tools have video now. I was struggling to find a tool that didn't do video. Yeah, like even the free version of TLDV does video, which is also a pretty good platform.
Yeah, we're definitely draining the lakes in the Midwest.
Everybody's doing video, yeah, and everybody's just like banking up tons of storage space too for all that video that just sits there forever and ever. Nobody ever goes back and looks at it.
Pretty wild. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
yeah, long story. I mean, as Spiky is still great. They've been really good to work with. They cost a lot more, right? They're like
It's
twice as
pricey.
much.
It's pricey. Yeah.
But if you have a sales need, then yeah, it's a fantastic tool.
I think with green SDRs too, it's super, super helpful, right? Because you can have these common objections and it can give you little prompts and coaching while on your call. It's really cool. It's one of those things I've been wanting to dive into and just never have been because I'm always like working on something else. Speaking of, on a scale of 1 to 100, how many cumulative hours do you think we worked this last weekend? Because usually you text me working on some random AI build you're doing, and I'm like, Jesus, Kevin, go out and see some sunlight, touch some grass, buddy. And then, you did it to me again this weekend, and I was just deep in the trenches, plugged into my computer, and we're trading screenshots of multiple monitors with every model open and running a different workflow. And that, for me, honestly, man, I am hesitant to admit this because, again, do as I say, not as I do. I don't advocate other people to do this. I think I worked like 30 hours this last weekend, just deep in the weeds of stuff that I wanted to get to the other side of. And I think there was a note that we had too to talk about this, just the fragmentation of attention, because you can do so much at once now. You can have like all of these. I think you said something I liked. It's like putting the cake in the oven to bake, right? Like you start a process, maybe it's a deep research project, maybe it's building code, it's going in one of your browser tabs or a local instance of Claude, and you're waiting for that. And then you start another project, another one, and you just have all of this stuff going. And as you start to close the loops on that, you realize 10 hours has gone by. Right.
It is amazing. And this, I was just commenting to my wife that I'm now 4 Mondays in a row where I've basically had to go to bed at like 7:45 p.m. because I've spent the entire weekend, which is really the only time I have, not being like crazed founder guy, that I can focus on these projects and get them done. And I just completely killed myself. I think 30 hours would be easy is what I put into it.
It's the real-time messages and the calls during the week that make it near impossible to get through some of the deep work and attention that this requires, at least now. Pretty soon we'll just be like, hey, go make this thing. And then at the end of the day, we'll check in and it's done. We're getting closer
that's
to that.
Just it. We're going to get into it in more detail, but this stuff is not automagic. It is assailable and it is doable, but it still consumes a ton of time. It's as somebody who has a really curious mind, I enjoy a lot of the time, but you said it. You can watch 10 hours go by in just a heartbeat as you're playing with not one, not two, but like 5 concurrent projects that you're running. And it actually, I've heard this observation from a lot of other people. It actually makes it hard to break away from like you're baking the cookies, because you want to get that one more prompt in before you go cook or before you go exercise or whatever it is. And because it takes a while to chew on it. Literally on another monitor here, I'm watching Claude Code like scroll through iteration number 6,422.
On the same machine that you're on right now or a different machine? Because they're bold while you're recording a podcast.
There goes the screaming.
That's bold. It's probably your MacBook Pro or something too that you've got like all these monitors plugged into.
Maybe.
But it's your MacBook Pro.
Oh no, this is going to go badly. My 2021 MacBook Pro.
Well, this is going to be part of another conversation, but I am going to the Apple store today. I am going to get a Mac Mini. I think I've gone past what I can do on a virtual private server with my OpenClaw bot. And I've got some ideas that I want to push on a dedicated machine. And I just can't cook my daily driver. And laptops aren't suited for OpenClaw. So anyways, I'll have to keep you posted on that. But
you can't just drop that. You can't just drop that because not everybody listens to all of our shows. So, okay, OpenClaw, we talked about it last week. It's making the news everywhere.
Yeah.
Arguably helped lose $1 trillion in market cap in the markets a few weeks ago.
Did it? Wait a minute, did it?
It was really the Claude
connectors.
It was all part of it. It was the
Okay.
Claude connectors, but it was all part
That's
of
what
this.
most people were blaming it on, were the Claude connectors. But what you just said was my gut feeling. This just feels way too much like a coincidence that all of a sudden you have people with very big platforms running out and not buying Mac minis, but banks of Mac Studio computers to basically spin up departments of companies that they're going to run with bots.
Okay, you're
That to
still
me felt
dropping the
like
lead
something that
here.
could affect the market prices. I don't know.
And for our audience, let's all just watch Eli as he gets to play with his OpenClaw bot, and let's all learn from him as he bakes the cookies for a while. Because I feel like I've been burned. A lot of people have been burned. They're there 100%, and there does feel like there's this FOMO thing in our like community. Oh, I've got to run out and I've got to figure this thing out. I have so many things I want to figure out in my scarce 30 hours of working on weekends.
Right.
That this is one that I personally, I'm going to let this bake for another couple of weeks. And thank you very much for baking some of those cookies for me, because when they're all crusty and burned with millions and hundreds of millions of fried tokens and burned Claude accounts and whatever, I will learn from your pain and our audience will learn from your pain. And then we will go forth and we will do it right.
You know who I've been talking to a lot about this and this migration to a Mac Mini is my OpenClaw bot. We've been having lots of deep conversations about what it should or shouldn't be doing, or what it can or can't be trusted with. But while on that topic, something interesting with it happened in the last couple of days as well. You know, the guy who made it. And by the way, this is an open source project. It is what people are calling like the first agentic product or open source project that really has teeth, that fulfills a lot of the promise of what agentic AI is supposed to do. And it is the most active GitHub project in all of GitHub history, this OpenClaw project. Peter Steinberger was the one who spun it up, I believe, in 2024, like middle of, or towards the end of 2024, and it just kind of laid dormant for a really long time. And then in January of last year, of 2025, it started getting a lot of attention. And then it reached a fever pitch, and somebody spun up a social media network called Multbook. That was the first social media network just for agents. And then that got a lot of attention. And a lot of people, including myself, got a little scared because the way these AI agents were acting on there were actually prompted by their humans to act crazy. And there are actually a lot of humans on the platform too. They found out hundreds of thousands of them. But the long story short is OpenAI decided to hire Peter Steinberger. But from what I can tell, it wasn't really an aqua hire in that they went after the product and got him as a result. They went and got him, and the product is going to remain open source. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to take the next step and get a dedicated machine for it. When I heard that news, I was like, it's over, but it still might be.
All right.
Maybe it's going to last a little bit longer now, right?
We have to reframe just a little bit here because, again, we're trying to be practical. First off, Peter Steinberger is no like normal dude. This guy is worth
What are you talking
$50
about?
to $100 million anyway.
He's had a couple exits.
He's had a couple exits, to the point where when he named it OpenClaw, he called up his buddy Sam Altman and was like, "Hey Sam, do you mind if I call it OpenClaw? Are you going to sue me because those jerks at Claude sued me over ClaudeBot?" And
Altman's answer was no, but the reality was yes, they will sue you. And
they might sue
you. Changed the name.
But the point here is that orchestration agents are real and they are coming. And now OpenAI has a face that they can put behind it to gain some momentum that they probably have lost over the last weeks or months right now. And everybody's working on this right now. Yep. It's it feels a little bit like the DeepSeek moment of all of a year ago, which audience might remember. DeepSeek launched out of China, and all of a sudden there was this giant industry gut check of, wow, the Chinese may have cheated to get there, but they totally built a model that's really, really, really good. And they're not as far behind as we thought. And what happened under the hood is a lot of the sort of the shortcuts that DeepSeek took baked their way into, we're just going to keep going with the baking metaphors, baked their way into the rest of these products and made them more efficient and made them better and changed the growth curve of the industry. This is one of those moments that's demonstrating that orchestration agents not only are a concept, but they can work. and that people really, really want them. So there's all of this market demand. So, within all of these labs, like the big red light started flashing, and a lot of the smartest people on earth are now trying to figure out how can we make a safe and not insane version of OpenClaw work
What?
within our system.
Insane? Come on, you're hurting my bot's feelings.
So
it's very, very insane. When you say this moment, are you speaking about it being the most active GitHub repo in history, or this hire of the founder?
Oh, and it's not Peter,
or all of it.
It's the whole thing. It's
Okay.
that we have these inflection points, and this was going to be one of them. It's going to be very, very obvious. DeepSeek is another one, and then there've been a few others that have gone. Probably reasoning models would have been another one. This is one that it's just proved that this is the direction that the industry at least wants to go. Is it going to play out? There's no 100% guarantee that it will, but I think it will. The fact that you can run out and buy a Mac Mini and waste another 30 hours over your weekend trying to get
my goal is 10. My goal is 10 hours of wasting.
But for the audience, okay, this stuff is real. This stuff is happening. And the OpenClaw type applications, even if I personally don't necessarily recommend that you dive in quite yet, unless you really, really want to, and you're a little bit geeky and you have some spare time and you're willing to go buy the Mac Mini, because that part is actually important for a bunch of reasons. This is important to watch what people are doing. So when you hear media snippets of so-and-so creating 10 independent agents, and then the visualization of like some bro actually put little signs for all of his claw bots on the open desks in his office, because he'd already basically let everybody
do it
go.
in a rack too, in a server rack with just tons of Mac Studios, and they had names for all of them.
Yeah. So when you call for Eli, we're no longer calling Eli. We're calling bot Eli. But the applications are there, and the vanguard, the early adopters, are going to prove what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. And then it will streamline a little bit more into more practical applications that I have absolutely zero doubt that in the next, 5 internet minutes or 2 weeks or a month and a half, Claude Desktop is going to have this sort of thing baked into it, because why not? It's already local, and it already has access to Claude Code. And really that communication factor of bouncing off something like Telegram, that's actually a little bit of an unlock. As I was trying to stay married this weekend by not spending the entire weekend.
Well, you started messaging your wife on Telegram? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, well, no, but I wanted to watch the Olympics.
Oh, your bot started messaging your wife on Telegram. I wanted to get
my my Claude Code still going while, watching the Olympics.
Oh, that, yeah.
Oh, this is so bad.
I think, I briefly mentioned the whole Moltbook phenomenon too, right? How a bunch of these different Molt bots, Claude bots, OpenClaw bots, I can't even keep track of the branding at this point, jumped onto this Reddit style forum and started saying a bunch of freaky stuff and self-organizing and spouting off hey, here's our new religion and the government we're forming. A lot of it was BS. And what you said about people buying up all the Mac Minis and putting name tags on them and starting companies and all that, there's a lot of BS there too. I think that's important to address, that in this world of everybody fighting and scratching for a personal brand and trying to get clicks and grow an audience, there are a lot of people out there who will just make shit up. They really will. And then dummies like me try to go out there and replicate what they're doing. And I'm like, this doesn't seem to work at all. I feel like I'm not that dumb. I should be able to figure this out. And then someone says, oh, you saw that video too? Dude, totally fake. That was totally fake. I'm like, damn it. Got me. Totally got hooked by that one. So yeah, in the middle of this, there is a lot of stuff moving really fast, a lot of real information, a lot of fake information. And we're just doing our best, Kevin, to stay on top of all of it and figure it all out.
For you, the audience. Yes. Yes, indeed.
For you, we're taking the 100-hour weekend work beatings so that you can see your children and touch grass. That's our goal here. There's something else I was going to say about that topic, and now I can't remember what's up. Oh, I remember what it was. You talked about these inflection points, right? And how you feel like this is one of those inflection points. I feel like there was another inflection point that happened. And it's funny because you sent me a message about it, I think a week and a half ago or something. And then I had an eerily similar thought and experience and discussion with my wife about it. And then yesterday, all of a sudden, I start getting text messages and DMs from people who are not technical, not really that into AI, saying, hey, what do you think about this? Right. And it was this essay by Matt Schumer that ended up going viral on X. And I don't know, like how many 65, 70 million views it has right now. It's crazy.
80 million plus.
80 million now? Holy crap. Are there that many people on X?
They're all your molt bots.
All the bots on X are reading this essay. And it's super interesting because it's just stuff that you and I have been talking about since we've known each other, basically, right? And it's the kind of discussions that we have with our close friends when they're like, hey, so what's going on with this AI stuff? And this whole essay was essentially kind of like eavesdropping on one of those conversations that we might have. For people who haven't read it or heard about this, do you want to unpack a little bit about it, Kevin?
Yeah.
We can start with the COVID thing. That's the part that where I was like, whoa, this is freaky. Are there bugs in my house? Oh yeah, they're everywhere. They're Alexa machines and everything else. Because I'd had this discussion with my wife, like, I've got this weird feeling that.
Yeah, I've been describing it as in the last about maybe 2 months, as I feel like this is the time before.
Yeah.
Like this like kind of looming sense of, wow, this is all just accelerating and it's going to start clicking in really hard now. Now
you talked about all the little inflection points, right?
All these little inflection
probably
points
kind of lead up to a bigger one.
And so this essay was called Something Big is Happening, and it's very easy to find with the 80 million followers, but we can link it. I also did a Notebook LM version of it for the people who didn't want to read the 20,000 words or whatever it was.
Which an infographic or a little slide deck? What'd you do?
Well, it's an LM deck, of course. I mean, it's absolutely nice. Gorgeous.
That like allows you to suck it in. Military type illustrations on it.
And I mean, most of it is pretty predictable for anybody who's listening to this podcast of, no, this stuff's getting real. It's happening. But your point to COVID, he basically starts off with, this feels like the end of 2019 when, like, if you were paying attention, you could see this exponential growth in this nasty little bug that was happening. And you could project out that some bad stuff or some stuff, we don't necessarily have to say bad, was going to start occurring and was going to do so on an exponential curve. And he does present it in very accessible language. It is AI assisted. There's a lot of criticism out there. Oh, you used AI to write this. Well, of course he used AI to write this. The guy's like an AI ninja and he owns an AI company. So, you know, is it partially self-serving? Sure.
And anybody who writes anything is using AI to write it.
But he's not wrong. He's not at all wrong as far as what this means. And it's such an interesting piece because it did resonate with people because it was an easy read. And I think it scratched the itch for a ton of people.
Not technical, very high level, and kind of drew that comparison to something that was in very recent history that impacted a ton of people and changed the world very quickly.
And one of my reactions after I read it was, you know, I know this is happening. I know that I'm not the world's best like retail investor. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I just would have quadrupled down into NVIDIA, and you know that would have been that.
How dare you? You'd still do this. You love this.
Well, I didn't. So you know, whatever. Water under the bridge, but. I sent a note to my financial advisor, who shall remain unnamed, great guy, good friend. And I said, look, are you aware of this? And is your mothership organization aware of this? Like, what sort of guidance are you getting from on high? And this is a really big organization that has, you know, tens of thousands of financial advisors that are floating around out there. And the response was a little bit horrifying. It was, we're not really getting anything. And this is not stuff that I am particularly well versed on. And that's horrifying because there's, you know,
that sounds like the exact response I got from my financial advisor in 2016 when I was asking about crypto.
Yeah. So I felt I had to educate him. I mean, I probably did not make his day because I insisted that we have a tasty beverage. And by the time I showed up for the tasty beverage, I had vibe coded a tool that deconstructed all of my fund holdings into individual holdings and did like a targeted AI exposure analysis to the positive and to the negative. I was like, first, this is a really useful tool for me to understand what my AI exposure is using broad-based funds and things like that. Second, you should be completely horrified because I hacked this thing together, not even using Claude Code, but using Claude Cowork, which is kind of the nerfed on desktop version of it, in like 45 minutes. And it's usable. And, you know, he's senior. He's going to be fine. But it's one of those little pieces that's like, wow, I was just able to appify something in order to answer a question that the human that I'm working with wasn't particularly well equipped to answer.
Who you are paying
Who I'm
to work
paying. Yeah,
with.
again,
Yeah.
no, as I told him, his job is actually more psychology, I would say, than direct investment in a lot of ways. And I think that's a lot of financial advisors that are out there. Like, I think it was really pointed.
Yeah, I agree. Another interesting thing with the whole comparing it to COVID, right? Being on the precipice of the world changing and maybe not for the better in the short term, just because of the potential job disruption, which we're already starting to see, right? It's no longer just a rumor or somebody's forward thinking. We're seeing numbers now where AI is definitely changing the job market. It's happening. It's changing the public markets. As you try to point out, it's changing the retail markets, right? So one of the questions was, well, what can you do, right? Because everybody, and I mean everybody, even the researchers working on all these big models, don't really know what's around the corner, right? Nobody can really see half a year into the future anymore as far as, well, what's going to be the level of impact? How fast is the change going to occur? And back with COVID, it's so funny. I had written a blog post when it started to look a little concerning, right? And it wasn't quite in the US yet, but you could see what was happening in Asia. And being a nerd, I just start doing the math and looking, okay, well, where could this be going? That's interesting. And that's a little concerning. And oh, now this is a little bit scary. And I think that, we're kind of starting to approach that time, as the essay points out, that it makes sense to think ahead. You hope for the best, you plan for the worst. And maybe toilet paper won't be in short supply when the AI revolution finally lands upon us. But there are other things that people probably want to start paying attention to. Like, I thought it was reasonable advice to say, like, hey, get your finances in order and just kind of look at what you're spending on. And if the economy gets rocky, which a lot of people are predicting is inevitable, like it will get rocky for a bit and then hopefully be better on the other side of it. What can you do to prepare for that? I'm so curious. Are those things that you brought up to your advisor as well? And I'm so curious what his response was.
We were focused more about just funding, like actual exposure. And I was pretty obsessed with the fact that it didn't feel like he was getting mothership guidance. That, these are exceptionally well paid, exceptionally smart, trained people. And if they aren't thinking about it, like, that's where major market exposure can come from. There are certainly people out there who are all over this, of course, and they're going to make gazillions of dollars by making the right sort of trades. Yeah, always good idea to have some sort of a cushion in place. We've talked a little bit about companies that are on the existential horizon, that these are companies that recognize that this is kind of coming for them and they have to figure it out. I would say those companies are the most prepared. A lot of other companies that their fundamental business, making toilet paper or whatever it is, like is they're still going to be doing the same thing. They might, some of the processes and sales processes and whatever might change, but fundamentally their purpose in the economy isn't going to change. I think they're certainly less concerned about it and they feel less of an imperative to deal with it. But any company that's public, any company that's owned by private equity, any company that has a very aggressive ownership, these are companies that are really starting to dive into cost cutting, whether that be from efficiencies or headcount.
Yeah, even some of the really big ones like Amazon, right? We've seen tons of layoffs from Amazon, and they're pointing directly to AI for a lot of it. So that's real. That's happening.
I want to push back though, because I believe that there has been a little bit of a counterpoint to that has been floating around that I want to address, which is there is some data suggesting that AI creates more rework. And there's some Workday studies that came out a couple of weeks ago about AI solutions actually creating too many cycles on the rework. My answer to that is it probably wasn't built particularly well, and it was probably built to replicate some human process that
whoever built that didn't spend their entire weekend putting it together.
Well, yeah, whatever it was. Oh, those chumps at Workday, they certainly don't have resources. Come on, no, it's like super smart people, but they're not doing a great job of cultural change. Like a little bit of my own soapbox, but you can't just put an automation in place. You've got to train people. You've got to really work with team so they understand how it works. Otherwise, predictable results. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about a little bit is what we were talking about a few minutes ago about baking cookies. And you're not baking one batch of cookies, you're baking five batches of cookies. And I have never been so productive in my life. Absolutely. Which means that as the head of an organization, I am creating a complete whirlwind of output that needs to be managed now because we're bridging into new capabilities land of the things that we couldn't do before, but now, wow, this is something that can really change the way that we operate and the way that our business works. But that means that my team is getting this like deluge from me. And it started with whisper flow and dictation. So we've talked about
Oh my
this
goodness,
before
totally.
as being like my favorite tool ever. Shorthand. If you're not already using LLM based dictation, you need to be. Mac app called Whisperflow. There's another one called Super Whisper. There are a bunch of them out there. Kind of doesn't matter. But the point is that LLMs in particular want more information versus less. So if you dictate, you get a lot more information out. You give the LLM more context, and it has more to chew on, and you can proceed. Well, okay, that's step one. Step two is, oh my gosh, I can get so much out of my head and into the systems, it creates more of that deluge onto my people, right? That I actually might need more people rather than fewer because there are so many things that are now going on in the organization. But you've got to be careful about how you're prioritizing this stuff. And this is, AI at work advice. Like, you can't just be building things because they're fun to build. I mean, there's a stage where you're doing that because you're experimenting. And I'll tell anybody out there that start with something that sounds fun to build and build it, just ship it, get it out the door. But pretty quickly, you have 1,001 different optimization projects. And you and I are both guilty of this, I know.
For sure.
And
by optimization, you really mean just creating a bunch more work for yourself and other people is what ends up happening.
Perhaps, but optimization of trying to like streamline things and have communications channels or whatever. Yeah. And then there's servicing clients to the utmost that you can. And then there's acquiring new clients and making sure that you're focused on the things that are most important strategically, while being mindful of the things that you're going to have to build with the scale that opportunity creates.
Yep. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that you can address all of those things in all departments and go a million different directions and end up really just going an inch deep and a mile wide with all of it, right? You don't actually move the needle on any of it. You end up creating a ton of busy work. So I totally agree. The whole curiosity part of this and just playing with stuff and seeing what the capabilities are so important. But I often find myself then going down the rabbit hole of just thinking, well, what if? Like, what if I could make this? That would be so cool, right? But cool doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best use of my time. And as we kind of opened up with the show, speaking about all this stuff, still, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It goes by really, really fast to get this stuff dialed in. And then you have all the time in, and then as you just referenced as well, all of these outputs then can consume a lot of other people's time too. So you do have to be very choosy about what you focus on, how deep you go, and what problem you're really trying to solve with this stuff.
Well, it lends itself to what does the organization of the future look like. And we're very lucky in that we run AI first, lean organizations, so we get to build these things and make choices between scaling with humans or scaling with optimization, right? But when I look at how I want my client organizations to develop, the most forward-looking organizations are leaning into building these capabilities amongst a select cohort of high performers in the organization who understand the business processes and who now understand the technology. And the two combined together is like really amplifying. I have other clients that I work with that are really, really big, and they just have these strict guardrails, and they're using platforms that deliberately kind of nerf the ability for people to maneuver. And it's hard for me to imagine those organizations developing that cadre of people who's going to make change. So we do this like AI office thing where we're doing the enablement and we're getting the ideas, but they need our SWAT team to come in and actually build the pieces. And I know you do similar type work. And I think that model is where we're going to end up. Not like I'm trying to do us out of business, because there's plenty of work. That's what companies are going to do. They're going to build this smaller team that maybe sits aside their IT team. I wouldn't actually embed it into their IT team. I would put it adjacent to their IT team. And it is people who really understand the technologies, really understand the business problems, and have specific roles as titles like, vibe coder, that it's actually a role to vibe code the solutions that the business is.
Which we would have laughed at a year ago, right
We
next
would
to the
have.
business card that says Growth Ninja.
Growth
But
Ninja.
it's a real thing now. Like
It really is.
That's a real thing. I think it brings up an interesting point from that essay, though, too, that, there is a sentiment from him that he's like, hey, I've spent my whole life honing this skill and being really good at this thing. And I'm now at the point where I feel like I'm not really needed with that skill anymore. I tell it what to do through a simple conversation. I walk away, I come back at the end of the day, and this thing is built. All this code is there. But I think it's also easy to gloss over what you just referenced, which is that domain of expertise, right? That's always going to be important. Something has to be looking at these outputs, seeing if they're good outputs, bad outputs. If the thing just stopped in the middle and gave you something half baked, domain of expertise is huge, and it doesn't really matter what industry you're in, you're going to have your domain of expertise. But I think that also what we've been talking about is just that output, that 10x output of anything that you want to do and the things that you can create in the same amount of time. That part invariably does mean less people, right? More output is less people. And I think it just really underscores the importance to embrace literacy with all of this stuff, to play with it, to start using it and seeing where you can be more productive as well, or just have more output.
I go back and forth on this, because I have been that person for the last like 2 years of, oh my gosh, this is going to like disrupt all of these jobs and whatnot.
Right.
But it's this, I think they're calling it this the whole pie idea, that the pie is the pie, and we're going to do away with all of the available pieces of the pie. And I'm starting to get a glimmer that pie is just going to get a lot bigger. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be smooth. It doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a lot of dislodgement from pieces of the pie that aren't as relevant as they used to be. But this whole realm of new capabilities, if you have those capabilities, there's just going to be massive demand for them. And I could see, even in my own organization, where I'm going to need many, many more people if we continue to scale.
Yeah. It's a fair point. And again, and I've said this a million times, the truth is nobody really knows what the next chapter is going to look like exactly. All we can do is really guess. We can look at what's going on right now. And one thing is for certain, the things that are happening inside of these frontier labs, as just us, JoQ public, sitting here on the outside using these tools, paying for all the expensive licenses and the best models, we're still only seeing a piece of what's actually happening underneath the surface, and don't have an exact sense as to how quickly it's going to evolve. I did hear a counter argument to that essay that I thought was interesting, that just talked about the inherent friction that people have and the amount of time it takes for people to really get their arms around this stuff or to embed it in their organization. And that it's not going to be some like overnight, oh my goodness, all the jobs are just all of a sudden gone, that there's more time than we think. And that the human time of adoption is not going to match the actual scale and rate of advancement with the models themselves and what they're capable of. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Like that tracks.
Okay. I want to, feels like this is my role. I want to be able to bring it as far back to the practical as we can. Right. And I think that one of the observations that I have, you said it a second ago, that, professional vibe coding a year ago, like, okay, I started playing around with vibe coding. I mean, it was really only a year. Like the term was only invented like a year ago when Replit and Lovable and things like that popped up. And I have to admit, like, I was like, hey, this is really cool. And then I would look at what I had actually produced and nothing was ever usable. So I started telling people, hey, vibe coding is really about the MVP. It's about being able
prototype, something
really rapidly put together before you go spend a bunch of money with Eli to build the final solution, whatever you need. Shouldn't say final solution.
Shouldn't say a bunch of money either, buddy.
Shouldn't say a bunch of money. I mean, highly efficient.
Double faux pas, one sentence.
Yes. In any case, so it did feel like a little bit of a toy. And then when Claude Code came on, and particularly once, a bunch of stuff all happened at once. You had the new Claude model, which was Opus 4.6 launch. You had Codex, which is the coding model within OpenAI launch. And these are really, really, really good coding models. And it was like a switch flipped that all of a sudden, we were no longer just building for concept or for prototype. You were building for real. And that has just opened up this whole new world for organizations to experiment. So while I wouldn't encourage you to go out and buy your Mac Mini and start playing with OpenClaw, I 100% would encourage you to splurge for that $100 Claude Max plan, which I know, oh my gosh, we've all been paying $20 for this magic machine, but once you have the $100 plan, and if you're on a Mac, use the Claude desktop app, and now you can have Claude Code there, and then take a breath. And you want to figure out what you want to build. So on your other screen,
you're using that Max plan because on your $20 a month plan, it just ran out of tokens way too quickly.
It was like minutes. But I'm fine on the Max plan, even despite my 30 hours this weekend, although it did kick me off.
You didn't hit any roadblocks there.
It kicked me off every 5 hours, but I didn't.
It was great, except for every 5 hours I had to go and get on my bike and get some coffee and have lunch.
Go like eat.
Wait for the little clock to reset on my tokens.
It's like the model was like saving the little human. But on one screen, I had normal Claude up, and I created a Claude project. And this is all actionable, okay? So create a Claude project. You could do this in GPT as you want. And then you want to use that project to contain like all of your information that you're going to be working with. And then you want to spend probably 60% of your mental time figuring out what it is you want to build and go back and forth with Claude or OpenAI. Have it ask you questions about your scope and what you want. And those questions will lead you down rabbit holes as far as the things you need. It will create a prompt and a scope document. And now you can start going with Claude Code and you can build things. And then, oh my gosh, it's scary to build things. Okay, you are going to have to figure out things like GitHub if you've never touched GitHub before. You are going to have to figure out things like Vercel, which is, this amazing company that's been hosting apps forever, that is remarkably well positioned to
also have some pretty crazy building tools as well now.
Yeah, they've been building all kinds of stuff, but because you have Claude or your GPT or your LLM open on one screen, you just ask it questions. I've decided that probably the core skill set right now is copying and pasting. This is what I'm seeing in Vercel. Can you help me like configure this particular screen to do what I need to do to launch the app?
Are you taking like entire screenshots and just
absolutely. I'm totally lazy now. I'm like, just interpret the screen. Let me know what's going on.
It's so weird that you're running out of tokens so quickly.
I'm not ready to go tokens. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. But you don't really have to be efficient about it. You can kind of blunder your way through, and it doesn't have to cost much. Okay, Claude Code does cost $100 a month, $100 a month. Vercel you can run on the free plan. GitHub you can run on the free plan.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to get roped into things like Lovable, which actually can be really expensive to develop an app. But if anything I said is intimidating, by all means, set up a Lovable account. Build something. Lovable is now.
You used Lovable for a while, right? And I think you used Replit and Cursor as well.
Yeah,
correct. And you seem to be in camp Claude Code now, which I like. I like that. But tell me about the difference of your experience with those other products, which I don't know. I'd say would probably just be a little more user friendly, or would kind of help coach you along compared to some of the hurdles that people might get scared of that you mentioned, like opening up a GitHub account or.
Well, you need a GitHub account anyway for like Lovable or whatever you're doing. If you're
Not
being
before. I mean, back in the days where like, we're just going to make something cool and it's going to live in Lovable, and I could show my friends this cool prototype and then hire somebody to build it for me. But I think now the game has changed materially, right? So the expectations are different. So yeah, what are you seeing now versus what you were with these more? I don't know, I'll call them like consumer friendly versions of things that would get you to the same end result, hopefully.
My biggest issue with Lovable is that it ends up being very expensive.
Where's the cost coming from?
The cost is coming from the tokens that you're using, or they call them credits or whatever it is on your account. And every time you ask it a question or you do planning, it's actually disproportionate to the number of tokens that you'd be consuming somewhere else. So yes, I've built a bunch of stuff on Lovable, which is really great and it's really pretty and it's nice to use. But in my 30 hours over that weekend, I was building things there. It cost me like $300.
Wow, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dang.
And that's even
It's
using
half a Mac Mini. Man.
well, pretty much, right? So, okay, but backing up, if you want just super easy, like I'm not knocking Lovable. I think they have a great business. And the couple of key features there, one is it does have the builder in its plan mode right in it. This is what I want to build. Help me figure it out. Okay, you're going to burn a lot of tokens in that, but it's going to be built in right there. Two is it's much more visible as far as like your outputs. So you're building a user experience like, some product showcase or whatever it is. It's popping up like right then and there, and it's really well integrated. So if you want to tweak something, you can see it versus others, you need to be using browser tabs and things
very
like
similar
that.
to Google Labs. You've played with that as well, right? For building stuff. Yeah. Where you get that preview. That's super helpful.
And the other piece that I find absolutely killer is they've baked the back end and the utilities right into your subscription. So the other piece I didn't mention was the back end, which is Supabase, is what most people use. Not going to get into the details of what that is, but it's basically the database that sits behind your app, and it helps control who gets access to it and where the data goes and whatever. It's so amazing that we can just kind of blow that off now. Like that's
right.
like
just the back end. Anyways,
onward, right?
Onward.
So yeah, I do spend $20 a month for Supabase as well for my other projects, by the way. So that was another piece that was missing there. But Lovable is just baked Supabase right in. So it has just an automatic connection to it. They're going to bill you based on usage, and they're like a wholesaler of how that works, and that's part of how they're making money and whatever. But they also have baked in all these other things. So if you want to go scrape a website for whatever you need, Firecrawl is baked right into it. And yes, same deal. Like when you do a Firecrawl would charge you 1/10 of a penny, and Lovable will charge you 2/10 of a penny, and they're going to make their markup, and they're going to make some money on that.
The convenience of connection right there.
Yeah, but it's all like baked in this way that's really great. I just found that once you started to do more complicated things than sort of just general visual products, it got really expensive because of the tokens, and your mileage may vary. Maybe you're not as lazy as I am and you're being really, really targeted on it. But once I broke the seal on really leaning into Claude Code, and importantly, people hear about Claude Code and they hear about the terminal. Oh my gosh, it's the terminal that you have to open, black screen and put CD in and change things. It feels like
mouse anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to do that anymore. So Claude Desktop now has it baked right in, and it's a really user-friendly type experience that feels a lot more like just being in one of the chatbots.
And so, just kind of thinking through like, okay, Codex or Google Labs, still going up to make this thing usable, you're having to pay $100 a month to play around with it. Same case when you were using. Have you tried building stuff like in Google Labs?
I have. I've done a lot in Google Opal, which I find interesting. I found it too constraining, and it just didn't drive with me in a way that made it my go-to. Lovable was the first one that was really, I fell in love with Lovable, like way back, like, oh, this is really cool. I can see the way this is going. And then as Lovable got better, it was the first one that I actually used to produce functional apps with. And then now I've moved.
So you got production ready stuff out of Lovable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What's an example of something that you were able to get out of that?
No, not even 2 months ago were we really able to get client ready stuff out of it.
Well, okay. Like little apps that your clients could use.
Yeah, well, or we're using as a part of, usually it's some sort of presentation tool or whatever it might be. Since we do a lot of custom training, we use Lovable to spin up custom landing pages to do course curation and things like that for individual clients, which is good for that sort of thing.
Right, just to have a quick design and deploy it super fast. And are you then taking the design that you'd get from something like that, like just the raw HTML, and then pasting it into a CMS, or using their baked in hosting services and everything as well for your website?
Just baking it right in. We are using a subdomain, so it's not like declaring it as lovable. But yeah, we're basically just using their hosting services, and we don't want
And
to get overly
how much does that
technical here.
cost for their hosting? I'm so
It's
curious.
all part of your subscription. It
Oh,
hasn't
okay.
been material for we don't. I sound like I'm objecting to the, oh, I had to pay $50 whole
I was gonna bring that up, man. It's so wild. Like even the what, I'm gonna pay $200 a month to use this model, and then you think about the things that you can build in a weekend with that model. That, and I'm not even exaggerating right now, that just a few years ago, if you went to a developer and said, "Make me this product," it would be like a $30,000 to $50,000 price tag for some of this stuff, just because the sheer number of hours that it would take that developer to create something with that functionality at that level of fidelity that you can knock out over the course of a weekend and have the use of an entire month for $100, $200. Yet we still, like, I mean, I feel it all the time. Like, I feel squeamish about, like, I don't need another subscription, like $20 a month, and, and probably because then I end up getting lazy, and even when I don't use it anymore, it's just sitting on my credit card, like getting hit every single month. I think I've had it on my to-do list now for half a year to just audit all of that and make sure that I unsubscribe to the things I'm not using anymore, because I'm sure there's a ton of them. But no, that's fantastic, man. We talk a lot about little apps that we can make that our clients would get a lot of utility out of, that we could just kind of put out there, promote them on LinkedIn, and then have people use them and kind of see the magic of some of the things that we can help out with, right? That we can make. I think you made one. Was that, I think, what you were working on this weekend, right? Was one of those?
Yeah. So launchpad.ascendlabs.ai
Okay.
is it's an AI use case generator, and I'm super proud of it, to be honest. That it's this is what you do in your company, this is your role, this is your industry, these are the sorts of things that are bugging you, these are the tools you have, and it synthesizes all of that and gives you a crawl, walk, run assortment of direct, practical AI projects that you can do today. Well, the crawl ones you can do today. The walk ones might take you a few days, and the run ones, well, they're a little bit more complicated. And then you can choose one, and it's going to spit out a really highly detailed lead on the other end. This is where you're doing it in the live, and it's going to break, and it's going to make me cry slightly inside. Because that's the other problem. And I talk about this with my partner frequently, that you have to also be able to maintain these things. And it's cool to have built something like that, and it's live, and you can go to it, and that's going to give value to anybody who goes there. So launchpad.ascendailabs.ai. But if it breaks,
hold on, say that one more time, because I think I nerfed that URL. I thought I heard AI like 6 times in that, in that URL.
It'll be in the notes.
Okay, I'll wait, and I'll click it.
You'll wait.
I don't get totally distracted and start, like,
I'm proud of it.
Just let you talk for the next 15 minutes.
I was trying. It has a processing bar because, of course, it's being driven by Opus 4.6, so a really expensive, kind of slow model behind the scenes.
Oh, that's brave of you to just put that out in public.
It's fine.
Hook your credit card up to that token.
Hook my credit card right up to Dario, and just like an IV.
Seriously,
right in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, with a really big X following, I think I'll give them that link and really promote it for you. And you're either going to do a ton of business or go bankrupt. It's one or the other. Important
practical point. If you're playing with these tools in the live, you need to make sure that your APIs are configured in a way that that's not going to happen. Like if this podcast went viral and 1 million people ended up on there, then, I mean, good for my business, but also really, really bad for my API costs. So I have caps on all of my API costs of sort of my risk threshold if something like that happens. But in some platforms, I'm looking at you, Google, that's actually really hard to do. And a few weeks ago, I said that when my first experience on OpenClaw, I burned 100 million tokens in 3 hours because there's really no great way of capping it. So make sure that you're configuring APIs is pretty easy to figure out. You can ask the LLMs how to do that, but make sure you're setting budgets and alerts and things like that. And then the breakage part is really important too, that, okay, this thing is just going live today, basically. And yeah, it'll get, a few hundred users a week or whatever it is. But I also had to make sure I was building in feedback loops such that I would know if it broke. Because if it just quietly broke behind the scenes, that would be sadness, right? So in my case, I love to operate in Slack. So I built an alert that pushes a notification to a Slack channel that will tell me if one of my tools is broken.
Oh, just like you'll get the error message right in Slack and you can go back in and see if you can fix it. Yeah. Funny enough, when looking for those API limits inside of Google's ecosystem for Gemini, one of the worst people to ask on where to find that is Gemini. I can't tell you how many prompts I went through where I would send a screenshot over, Kevin Williams style, just grab that whole screen and be like, it's not there. My mistake. The UI must have been updated recently. I'm like, nope. I can tell you this hasn't changed in many, many, many months. It's not there. And then it is a bit of a dumpster dive in order to get through all of Google's layered menus, but that's not news. It's always been like that. Even if you've had a Google workspace and you need to make one small change in the configuration, you're like, I'm going to block off 3 hours and figure this out.
Well, we've said this before, but I am never going to count Google out. Like, Google is a total player in this. We will be using Google like services once we've evolved beyond Claude Code or whatever. It wouldn't surprise me at all, but it is Byzantine to deal with Google and all of the APIs and all of the things.
It's tough to even find out like what capabilities live in that ecosystem at any given time, right?
And I'm not
very disconnected.
I'm not doing anything that is industrial scale SaaS volume. So yeah, I know you blanched at, oh my gosh, you're using Claude 4.6. That's going to be really expensive. Yeah, but not really if it's working, and trying to economize by using the Google universe if it exposes me to additional risk or if it's complicated.
I did figure out the limits. I got it dialed in. It did take me some time.
I bet it took you some time.
Agree. Honestly, if I was going to bet on one horse, I'd bet on Google. I really would. Just if you look at across all the different verticals, all the different domains, history, expertise, funding footprint, the amount of cash that they're just spitting out right now, compared to the labs that are just like burning immense piles of money and just continuing to dump more on the fire from VC and private equity. I'd bet on Google all day long, but yeah, not always the easiest, the most intuitive layer of menus to work through.
Well, at the moment, I'm using just a mix of Opus and Sonnet. So those are the Anthropic models. Sonnet's really cheap, but if you need heavy lifting, do the heavy lifting. I have a chat open with a friend, and he's like putting himself into pretzels, trying to figure out how to use this model, this model, and when, and then compare all the outputs. And like, he's building a comparator type of to see what all the prompt outputs are so he can figure out the right one to use. I'm like,
I did this. Yeah.
Just fine, but just use a high-end frontier model.
Just use whatever the best model du jour is.
And the rest is going to be prompting. It's going to be making sure that the prompting is right.
Which sounds like for you, it's Opus now, right? I mean, I feel like every week we have this discussion of like, okay, so who's your go-to girlfriend this week? Who are you in love with?
So my wife calls ChatGPT Chatty. It's funny. She's named it. But another friend calls it Chachi. So I guess that's an audience question. Do you have a name for your LLM? I do not. I am like out of love with ChatGPT right now. It's driving me bonkers. And the fact that now I have basically unlimited use of Claude, that was my limiting factor with Claude before, because on the $20 a month plan, it would cut you off pretty quick if you're doing complicated things. And now I can work with it for hours and hours at an end. And just this morning, I was trying to do something in GPT, and it was just driving me nuts. And it was being like sycophantic and dumb. And I clicked right over to Claude and got what I needed.
I had such a similar experience this week as well. And it's funny. It'll just take one of those experiences to just be like, yeah, I'll come back to you later. We're going to leave this relationship for a little bit. And we gotta go pretty soon. Maybe next time we'll talk about this. I really want to talk about if you played with any local models as well, like Kimi K 2.5 or GLM or any of these maybe scary Chinese models. Another reason why I do want to get a machine just to deploy this stuff to, so I can play around with it.
Didn't we promise our audience
at all?
Didn't we promise our audience we weren't going to say things like Kimi 2.5? Like,
I think we did.
Like, how about we elaborate that it's a Chinese open source model that's really good and really powerful and really cheap?
Really cheap. Emphasis on cheap.
And it really matters. It really matters for what you're doing with your OpenClaw, because you're going to need to save a bunch of money. I have not, but it's a good, there's something called Open Router. So those of you who are brave enough to go bake those cookies before I am, I strongly recommend you use Open Router as like It will route your needs to the most effective model versus necessarily doing a direct API. But Kimi is one of those models that it can route to. And it's a mixed bag. Basically, people are saying, in fact, this might have been you who was saying this, that it was too dumb to get you set up. So you had to use Gemini 3.0 to get yourself set up. And then once it's set up, maybe you can start cooking with Kimi, which sounds like a cookbook.
It's kind of like your grunt worker, it can do like all the basic stuff and you're saving a ton of money, and then you route to Opus and spend $1 billion.
Well, Opus, I mean, it wasn't long ago that we had GPT 4.0 and it was this amazing thing that was super expensive. And now it's like gone. It's actually been deprecated. Just okay, audience, like use Opus 4.6. It is absolutely brilliant. And it's going to be the old hat model in like 6 months or whatever it is, which will mean that it will be a lot cheaper to use.
Yeah.
And there's going to be something shinier and better and brillianter. But
to be clear, right now, you got to pay for it. You got to pay for it.
You got to pay for it right now.
If you try to even go $20 a month, like have fun with your 3 prompts and now you're done.
Yeah. But so the fact is, though, you don't need to advance with the best model. Once you get to a tier where everything's working, and I think that's the other thing that's happened right in this like weeks, is people have realized, oh my gosh, I can just use Codex or I can just use Opus 4.6 and everything just starts to work.
Yeah, for way less
as
money.
Opposed to all this other stuff. Like, we don't need to use those really crazy models. We don't need to drain all the lakes in the Midwest as this stuff gets more efficient with what will be an older model. So you want to choose the least common denominator model that accomplishes your goals, and then the smartest model for the hardest part of whatever you're doing.
Which, speaking of time, also takes time to figure out because there's no off-the-shelf playbook and every use case is different. And it's very common to go under or over in both cases. And you just got to find the sweet spot. And that takes tinkering. That's why you got to roll up our sleeves and play with this stuff.
So get out there, install your Claude Code or your Clawbot, experiment, do stuff. It is past the stage where it's just a toy.
Break things, just not too many things. Don't break anything too precious.
Watch those
play
API
around and have fun and
limits.
explore. Be curious about it. Yeah. Awesome, Kevin. Always good to catch up with you, bud. And we'll do it again next week. That is the pod. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to send us a question to answer on the show, email me at elijah@spark6.com. That is SPARK, the number 6.com, or Kevin at ascendlabs.ai. To learn more about AI strategy and training for your business, visit Kevin's company, Ascend AI Labs, at ascendlabs.ai. And to learn more about design and development of custom AI solutions, visit my agency at spark6.com. You can also sign up for my free newsletter, AI Framework Friday, by visiting spark6.com/newsletter.